Story 1.
I opened the motel closet because I heard breathing inside it. Not loud breathing, slow breathing, careful breathing, like someone trying not to get caught. I remember standing there frozen with my hands still in the closet handle, while the cheap motel, I do like it. The room lights flickered once. Then again. And that's when I saw my name scratched into the wood inside the closet door. Ethan was here, over and over. Different handwriting every time. My throat went dry instantly. I stumbled backwards so hard I hit the edge of the bed. The closet was empty. No person, no movement. But the breathing didn't stop. It kept coming from inside the walls. My name's Ethan Grady. I was 29 and working overnight maintenance for a highway motel outside Flagstaff, Arizona. The place was called the Red Pine Lodge, sitting alone off Route 66, surrounded by empty desert in dark forest hills. Most nights were boring, broken ice machines, dead light bulbs, drunk travelers. But room 16 was different from the beginning. The night manager handed me the key around 1:10 a.m. after multiple guests complained about noises inside the walls. Said people kept checking out early because they heard whispering at night. I laughed at first. Old motels always made weird sounds. Still, the manager looked genuinely nervous. "Just check the vents," he told me quietly. "And if the closet door is open," he stopped talking, then forced a smile. "Just close it before you leave." That should have been enough warning. The hallway outside room 16 felt colder than the rest of the building. One of the overhead lights flickered nonstop while the soda machine nearby hummed loudly in the silence. I unlocked the room around 1:23 a.m. The TV was already on. Static filled the screen. At first I thought housekeeping forgot to unplug it, but the room had supposedly been empty all week. The bed looked untouched, bathroom dry, no luggage anywhere. Then I noticed the closet door slowly swinging open by itself, just a few inches. That's when I heard the breathing. I remember forcing myself toward the closet because I honestly thought someone might have been hiding inside. Maybe a homeless guy sneaking into empty rooms. But when I opened it fully, nobody was there. Only my name scratched repeatedly into the wood paneling. That's when I noticed something worse. Some of the carvings looked fresh. Tiny splinters still sat beneath the letters like they'd been scratched recently. And underneath the names, there were dates, dozens of them. Some dated years earlier, some only weeks old, and one of them had tomorrow's date written beside it. I stood there staring at it while my heartbeat hammered in my ears. Then the motel radio clipped at my belt suddenly crackled alive. "Ethan," the front desk whispered urgently. "Did you go into the closet?" I asked how she knew that. No answer came for several seconds, just static. Then she quietly said, "Because the hallway camera just showed someone closing it behind you." I spun around immediately. The room door was still locked, and I was completely alone. At least, I thought I was. I checked under the bed, bathroom, behind the shower curtain. Nothing. But the entire room suddenly felt smaller somehow, heavy, like the air pressure changed. Then I heard movement above me. Soft footsteps crossing the ceiling. The problem was, room 16 sat on the top floor. That's when it happened again. But this time, it was different. The TV static cleared for half a second, long enough to show motel security footage. I saw myself standing outside room 16, staring directly into the hallway camera. The timestamp read 1:26 a.m., 3 minutes in the future. Then the image vanished back into static. I backed away from the television slowly, my hands shaking so badly I nearly dropped my flashlight. The footage felt too real to dismiss. Same jacket, same posture, same motel radio clipped to my belt. Except the version of me on screen looked terrified, like he'd seen something behind the camera. I radioed the front desk again. No answer this time, just faint static. Then another voice quietly whispered through the speaker, "Don't leave the room yet." It sounded exactly like me. I shut the radio off instantly, but the whisper continued anyway, not through the speaker anymore, Through the bathroom vent. Not yet. Slow breathing followed. I grabbed my flashlight and stepped toward the bathroom carefully. Every instinct told me to leave the room immediately. But fear does weird things to your brain. It makes you curious when you should run. The vent above the mirror rattled softly. Then something tapped twice inside it. I climbed onto the sink counter and shined my flashlight into the vent opening. Dust, darkness, narrow metal ducts stretching deeper into the building, and muddy fingerprints, fresh ones. That's when I realized the prints looked too large to fit inside the vent itself. I climbed down immediately. My stomach dropped when I saw the closet door standing open again behind me. I know for a fact I closed it earlier. I even remember hearing the latch click, but now the door sat halfway open, revealing darkness inside, and the breathing had returned, closer this time, slowly. I pointed my flashlight toward the closet floor. There were muddy footprints inside now. Their footprints. They stopped inches from where I'd been standing moments earlier. That's when I noticed something worse. One set of footprints matched mine exactly. Same boot pattern, same damaged heel on the right foot. But the second set looked barefoot and impossibly long. My chest tightened hard enough to hurt. I reached for the motel door and finally decided I was done with the room completely. But the handle wouldn't turn. The lock jammed solid. Then the lights went out. Complete darkness swallowed the room. For a few seconds, the only thing I could hear was breathing. Not mine, someone else's. Slow and patient somewhere near the bed. My flashlight flickered weakly while I backed against the wall. Then the TV turned on again by itself. The security camera footage returned. This time it showed the hallway outside room 16 in real time. Empty corridor, flickering overhead light, soda machine buzzing softly. Then I watched myself walk past the camera. Not future footage, current footage. I was still inside the room. The version of me on screen stopped outside the motel window and slowly turned toward the camera. Even through the grainy footage, I could see his expression clearly. He looked exhausted, almost emotionless. Then he smiled. My entire body went cold. That's when the bathroom door slammed shut behind me. I nearly screamed. The sound echoed violently through the small motel room while my flashlight beam bounced everywhere. I ran toward the bathroom instinctively and yanked the door open again. Nobody there, but the mirror had changed. Someone had written a sentence across the glass using steam. "He knows you're watching." I stumbled backwards so fast I slipped against the carpet. My radio suddenly crackled back to life, clipped against my belt. The front desk clerk sounded panicked now. "Ethan, there's someone asking for a room key." I tried answering, but she kept talking over me. "He says he already works here." "Cause? He says his name is Ethan." Every hair on my arm stood up instantly. I grabbed the motel room chair and smashed it against the window hard enough to crack the glass. The second hit shattered it completely. Cold desert air rushed inside while motel alarms began blaring somewhere downstairs. I climbed halfway out the broken window, then stopped. Someone was standing in the parking lot below. Me. Same maintenance jacket. Same flashlight hanging from the belt. Same tired expression. He stared directly upward toward the broken motel window without moving, then slowly raised the room key for room 16. That's when I heard footsteps behind me inside the room. Not running. Walking calmly toward me. I jumped from the window immediately. The fall knocked the air out of my lungs when I hit the pavement below. Pain shot through my ankle instantly, but adrenaline forced me back up. I looked toward the parking lot again. Nobody there now, only empty spaces beneath flickering lights. The motel alarms continued screaming across the property, while guests peeked nervously through curtains. I limped toward the front office as fast as I could, nearly slipping twice on loose gravel. But when I reached the lobby, the night clerk looked confused seeing me. "You already checked out," she said quietly. I remember staring at her without speaking for several seconds. Then she slowly pointed toward the security monitors behind the desk, and my blood turned cold again. One monitor showed lobby footage from 5 minutes earlier, I learned much from this one. I watched myself standing at the front desk calmly handing over the room 16 key. The version of me on the footage smiled politely at the clerk before walking out the motel entrance into the darkness. Outside. Same clothes, same face, same voice. The timestamp matched exactly while I stood there watching it happen. I quit the Red Pine Lodge the next morning. Never returned. The motel shut down permanently 8 months later, after multiple guests disappeared from different rooms over the winter. Officially, nobody knows why. But sometimes late at night, I still get voicemail messages from unknown numbers. Every message begins the same way. Heavy breathing, static. Then my own voice quietly saying, "Room 16 is still waiting for you."
Story 2.
The waitress dropped the coffee pot the second she saw me on the security monitor. Not because I walked in, because according to the monitor, I was already sitting in booth 6. I remember staring at the flickering TV mounted above the counter. Black and white camera feed, grainy, old, and there I was, head down, wearing my exact jacket. Then every person inside the diner slowly turned toward me at the same time. Not normal turning, not curiosity, it looked rehearsed. And the man sitting in booth 6 finally lifted his head. He had my face. For a second, nobody moved, not even the cook behind the grill. The only sound was grease crackling somewhere in the kitchen and the buzzing neon open sign outside the window. My throat went dry instantly. I actually thought I was hallucinating from exhaustion. But then the guy in booth 6 smiled at me, before I smiled first. That's when I realized something worse. The camera feed above the counter was delayed by maybe 3 seconds, but the version of me on that screen moved before I did. I stepped backward from the entrance, and the thing on the monitor copied me early. Like it already knew what I was about to do. The waitress whispered something under her breath and disappeared into the kitchen without even looking at me again. My name's Daniel. I was 28 back then, working overnight supply deliveries across rural Nevada. Most nights were quiet. Long highways, dead gas stations, old diners open past midnight for truckers and night workers. That diner sat about 40 miles outside Ely, surrounded by nothing except desert and empty road. I'd stopped there around 2:10 a.m. after my route got delayed. My GPS had been acting strange for almost an hour already. Every few miles, it kept rerouting me back toward the same stretch of highway no matter which exit I took. I was irritated more than scared at first. Then the radio started cutting out with these weird bursts of static that sounded almost like whispering. And then it happened again. Right before I reached the diner parking lot, the radio crackled and a voice quietly said, "He's here." Not loud, not screaming, calm, almost disappointed. I nearly drove off right there, but I convinced myself it was crossed frequencies from another trucker. Inside the diner, nobody touched their food. I noticed that almost immediately. Plates sat cold on tables untouched while people stared into their coffee cups like they were waiting for something. The old man near the register kept tapping his fingers in the exact same rhythm against the counter. 3 taps, pause. 3 taps again, but this time, it was different. When I looked back at booth 6, the guy who looked like me was gone. The booth was empty. Still warm coffee, still moving chair, but empty. I asked the waitress if someone had just been sitting there. She froze halfway through wiping a glass. Her face lost all color. Then she asked me a question that made my stomach tighten instantly. "Did he talk to you yet?" I laughed nervously because, honestly, what else do you do? I asked what she meant, but she just shook her head fast and told me to leave before it notices. Those were her exact words. Before it notices. That's when I noticed something worse. Every clock inside the diner showed a different time. One said 1:43, another said 3:11. The tiny digital microwave clock behind the counter blinked 1200 over and over again. But my phone said 2:10 a.m. exactly. The same time it had shown when I parked. I swear my heartbeat started stumbling in my chest. The cook suddenly yelled from the kitchen, "He can't stay here tonight." Everybody heard it. Nobody reacted. The old man at the counter just kept tapping. 3 taps. Pause. 3 taps again. I finally sat down near the window because leaving somehow felt worse than staying. That feeling didn't make sense then. It does now. A few minutes later, the waitress quietly brought me coffee without asking. Her hands were shaking badly enough that some spilled onto the table. I asked her what was happening, and she leaned close enough for me to smell cigarette smoke on her sweater. Then she whispered, "If someone inside this diner looks like you, don't let them leave before you." I actually felt cold spread through my arms. Outside, headlights slowly rolled into the parking lot. An old park ranger truck. Mud splashed up the sides, engine rattling hard. A tall ranger stepped out and immediately scanned the diner windows like he was counting faces inside. When he entered, the entire room went silent again. The ranger looked directly at me. Not surprised, more like exhausted. "And now there's 2 of you," he muttered. And then it happened again. The security monitor above the counter flickered. Static rolled across the screen. For half a second, every camera angle inside the diner disappeared except one. Booth 6. The other me was sitting there again. Only this time, he wasn't facing the camera. He was staring directly upward at me through the monitor. I stood up so fast the chair scraped loudly against the floor. The ranger immediately grabbed my arm and told me not to react. His grip was so tight, it actually hurt. He asked me one question without taking his eyes off the monitor. "Did you already see him outside too?" I said no. The ranger looked genuinely relieved for about 2 seconds. Then someone knocked on the diner window behind me. "3 slow knocks! 3 slow knocks!" Everybody inside looked terrified now. I turned carefully toward the glass. My stomach dropped so hard I thought I might throw up. Someone was standing outside wearing my delivery jacket. Same height, same beard, same face. Except he was smiling wider than any normal person could. That's when I realized nobody in the diner seemed shocked anymore, just scared. Like they'd seen this before. The ranger pulled me away from the window immediately and locked the front door. I remember yelling at him, demanding answers, but he kept telling me to stay calm. Outside, the thing wearing my face slowly walked along the diner windows, peeking inside at everyone one by one like it was choosing someone. Then it stopped directly outside my table and smiled harder. The waitress started crying quietly near the kitchen entrance. She kept repeating, "Not again, not again." The ranger finally explained, or tried to. He said travelers sometimes reported seeing copies near Highway 50 after midnight, usually after long isolated drives, sometimes near abandoned rest stops, sometimes near the old mining roads outside town. Most people never reported it because they thought they were tired or losing their minds, but a few disappeared completely. The ranger said the copies always tried to get somewhere warm, somewhere populated, and if they got inside first. He stopped talking after that, but this time, it was different. The power suddenly went out. Everything dropped into darkness except the buzzing emergency lights above the kitchen. Somebody screamed near the bathrooms. Dishes shattered. I heard the lock on the diner door rattle violently. Then came my own voice from outside. "Daniel, let me in." Perfectly my voice, not close, exact. Every hair on my body stood up instantly. The ranger pulled out a flashlight and radioed for backup, but static swallowed every word. I could barely breathe at this point. The voice outside kept talking calmly through the glass. "They think you're the copy." Nobody inside answered. Then the voice laughed softly, and the people in the diner slowly started looking at me differently. That was the worst part. Not the thing outside, the people inside beginning to doubt which one was real. That's when I noticed something worse. The old man at the counter finally stopped tapping. Then he quietly pointed toward me and said, "He came second." Nobody argued. The waitress backed away from me. The cook disappeared fully into the kitchen. Even the ranger looked uncertain for a second, and that terrified me more than anything else all night. I started panicking. I pulled out my delivery logs, my ID, my route scanner. I kept explaining who I was, where I worked, where I came from. My hands shook so badly I dropped my wallet on the floor. Outside, the other me tapped gently on the glass. 3 taps, pause, 3 taps again. Same rhythm as the old man. The ranger finally made a decision. He grabbed me and shoved me toward the back exit near the kitchen. He told me there was an emergency ranger station 2 miles north and ordered me to drive there immediately without stopping. "What about that thing?" I asked. He looked toward the window, then back at me. "If it follows you," he said quietly, "don't let it get ahead of your headlights." I still think about that sentence constantly. I ran to my truck through the back parking lot. Freezing wind. Gravel crunching under my boots. My hands barely worked, trying to unlock the door. And the entire time, I felt someone watching me from somewhere behind the diner. I drove fast, too fast. The empty highway stretched endlessly ahead while my headlights shook across the desert road. I kept checking my mirrors every few seconds. Nothing there. Then the radio crackled alive. "Daniel." I nearly swerved off the road. Static hissed loudly before my own voice whispered to the speakers again. "You left me behind." And then it happened again. Headlights appeared behind me. Same truck as mine. Same damage on the front bumper. Same license plate. It stayed exactly 6 car lengths behind me the entire drive. No matter how fast I went, no matter how hard I turned. I finally saw the ranger station head around 3 a.m. Small building, single floodlight, empty parking area. I slammed on the brakes and jumped out before the truck fully stopped. Then I looked behind me. The road was empty. No headlights, no second truck, nothing. I stumbled inside the station shaking so badly I could barely speak. The night dispatcher listened quietly while I explained everything. When I finally finished, she looked confused more than scared. Then she checked the patrol log. According to the log, Ranger Holt, the ranger from the diner, died 3 years earlier responding to a highway disappearance near that exact diner. I remember staring at her face, waiting for her to laugh or admit it was some joke. She didn't. Then she asked me something quietly. "What diner?" The building on Highway 50 had burned down in 2019. I drove home before sunrise without saying another word. I quit that delivery job 2 days later. Never went back near Ely again. But about 6 months after that night, I got something in the mail. No return address. Inside was a black and white security photo from the diner. Me, standing near the entrance. Everyone inside staring directly at me. And sitting alone in booth 6 was somebody else, watching both of us.
Story 3.
I was halfway through signing the night patrol log when the security guard grabbed my wrist and whispered, "Why are you back here again?" I laughed at first. I thought he was joking, but then he slid a printed visitor badge across the desk. My name was already on it, stamped yesterday. Same time, same building, same floor. And the photo on the badge was me staring directly into the camera with a terrified look on my face. My stomach dropped so hard, it actually hurt. I told him he had the wrong guy, but he kept staring at me like he'd seen a corpse walk through the lobby. Then he said something that still keeps me awake at night. "You asked me yesterday not to let you leave if you came back." I'm Tyler. I was 28 at the time, working overnight maintenance for a corporate office building outside Denver, Colorado. The building stayed open 24 hours because of the data servers upstairs, so my shifts usually ran from 10 p.m. until sunrise. Most nights were dead quiet. Just flickering fluorescent lights, empty hallways, and the constant hum of ventilation echoing through 6 floors of glass offices. The security guard's name was Ramon. Older guy, calm, never the type to mess around. But that night, his hands were shaking while he checked the monitor wall behind the desk. I asked him what the hell he was talking about, and he pulled up archived footage from the previous night. That's when I noticed something worse. The timestamp said 2:13 a.m. The footage showed me walking through the front lobby, wearing the exact same gray hoodie I had on right now. Same backpack, same coffee thermos. But I had never been there the night before. I'd been home asleep. The video had no audio, but Ramon remembered everything. He said I came in soaked from the rain, even though the weather had been clear yesterday. He said I kept looking over my shoulder toward the parking lot. And according to him, I looked terrified. Then the footage showed me leaning across the security desk. Ramon muted the TV for a second and swallowed hard. He told me not to trust anyone who looked like him after midnight. I felt cold all over. I asked him if this was some kind of prank, but he looked genuinely disturbed. Then he zoomed in on the footage. My face filled the screen, and I realized something horrifying. The version of me on camera had a split lip, fresh blood running down his chin. I touched my own mouth without thinking. Dry, normal, no injury. And then it happened again. The elevator behind us dinged softly. Both of us turned at the same time. The door slid open to an empty car. But the security monitor above Ramon's desk showed someone standing inside. Me. I spun around so fast my chair tipped over. The actual elevator was empty. No one there. But on the CCTV feed, the other version of me stood perfectly still under the elevator light, staring straight into the camera. Ramon immediately killed the elevator feed. His breathing got shallow. He whispered, "That's exactly what happened yesterday. I should have left right then. I know that now." But fear does weird things to people. Sometimes your brain gets so desperate for an explanation that you keep walking deeper into something dangerous, just to prove it makes sense. Around midnight, I started my normal patrol. 6 floors, check doors, check server rooms. Log maintenance requests. Simple routine. Except every floor felt wrong that night. The office lights kept flickering in slow patterns, not random, like sections were turning off one by one ahead of me. Floor 4 went dark before I stepped off the elevator, then turned back on the second I entered. That's when I realized the motion sensors weren't causing it. Something else was. I radioed Ramon. "Everything good down there?" Static answered first. Then my own voice came through the speaker. "Don't go to 6. I froze instantly. Same tone, same breathing, same voice crack. Exactly me. "Ramon," I whispered. A long pause filled the radio. Then my voice came back quieter this time. "It already knows you heard it." The radio cut dead. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped the flashlight. I kept telling myself someone was screwing with me. Maybe pre-recorded audio, maybe Ramon playing some sick joke. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. That's when I noticed something worse. The patrol log in my clipboard already had entries written for tomorrow. Same handwriting as mine, same signature. At 1:47 a.m., tomorrow's log read, "Do not follow yourself." I stared at those words for almost the only reason I took them into a distance of the end was that tiny fact could not be undeniable. The only reason I was helping the people on foot is that we all made the same work. The distance felt the second room of peace of holy, half-prominent comrades. I could hear printers humming somewhere in the dark, even though nobody was there. Then footsteps started moving behind me, slow, steady, matching my pace exactly. I turned around fast. Nothing. But this time, it was different. The footsteps didn't stop when I stopped walking. They kept coming. Closer. I backed toward the elevator while shining my flashlight down the hallway. Cubicles, glass offices, empty chairs, nothing moving. Then my flashlight passed one of the conference room windows. Someone ducked out of sight. I sprinted toward the room and shoved the door open. Empty, but the rolling chair near the table was still spinning slightly. And written across the fog glass in shaky finger marks were 4 words, "You left me here." I actually felt my throat close up. My chest tightened so hard I couldn't breathe for a second. I backed away from the room and hit the elevator button repeatedly. The doors finally opened. I stepped inside and immediately noticed the button panel. There was floor 7. This building only had 6 floors. I stared at the glowing number for several seconds. Then the elevator started moving upward on its own. Floor 5, floor 6, then higher. Floor 7. The doors slid open slowly. The hallway outside looked identical to the others at first. Same carpet, same office lights, same gray walls, but everything was slightly wrong. The lights buzzed louder, the air smelled wet, and every office desk was covered in paper scattered everywhere, like someone had abandoned the place in a hurry. Then I saw the security monitors, an entire wall of them. Every screen showed different parts of the building: lobby, hallways, stairwells, parking garage. And on every single screen, I was visible somewhere, different versions of me. One standing motionless in a hallway, one limping through the parking lot, one staring into a bathroom mirror, one pounding on a locked exit door. I couldn't move. I just stood there watching dozens of versions of myself wandering the building at different times. Then one of them looked directly into the camera and smiled. That's when the radio in the desk crackled again. Tyler, my own voice. Weak this time. Scared. Please don't leave me here again. I backed toward the elevator. The screen suddenly changed all at once. Now every camera showed me standing exactly where I was, except one. One screen showed me still downstairs in the lobby talking to Ramon, like I had never left. And then it happened again. The elevator doors behind me closed by themselves. I ran. I don't even fully remember what happened after that. I just know I sprinted through that impossible floor while lights shut off behind me one by one. The radios kept whispering my name from empty desks, and somewhere nearby, footsteps kept matching mine perfectly. I finally found the stairwell and nearly fell down the steps trying to escape. When I reached the lobby, Ramon looked horrified, because according to him, I had never gone upstairs. He said I'd been sitting in the security office the entire time staring blankly at the CCTV monitors for almost 40 minutes. I told him he was insane. I told him I'd been on another floor. I told him about the screens. Ramon went completely pale. Then he slowly turned one monitor toward me. The footage showed me sitting beside him at the desk, completely motionless, staring directly into the camera. Timestamp, current time. While I was standing there watching it, I quit the next morning. Never went back. Never answered their calls again. 3 weeks later, Ramon disappeared during his shift. No signs of forced entry, no evidence he left the building. But according to the final security report, one elevator camera briefly captured him entering floor 7. The building blueprints still say the office only has 6 floors. But sometimes, really late at night, I still get voicemail notifications from unknown numbers. Static, buzzing fluorescent lights, and my own voice whispering the exact same thing every time. Don't come back this time.